All right. So here we are. I guess for the last, I'm guessing, of the live streams. Maybe we'll see. So get a ni hao to all my English speakers and my Americans. Since I guess we're migrating over to Red Note, which is cool. I still have no clue what I'm doing over there. I posted a couple of videos. I have absolutely no clue how to run any of that, and I was just starting to get used to TikTok. I was just starting to get used to how all this stuff actually functions. Like people have been explaining, like, oh, this little diamond means this, and somebody liked your live show or something like that. And so I'm just starting to learn all this stuff, and then they go ahead and do this madness. So, one of the things that I think that, and I'm going to go through kind of my monologue here on this one, but one of the things that I think that happened is that people started comparing notes. And anybody if you've ever run any kind of like a scam. Now, in the past, believe it or not, I've actually ran scams in the past, which is why I'm so adamant against all of it. I want nothing to do with any of it. I want no money from it, nothing. And one of the things that you learn is that you don't want people comparing notes. That's one of the very last things you ever want. People that you told one story to someone else, and then you told another story to some, like you don't want them comparing notes with each other. And all over the world, we have been kind of seeing this sort of take place. And particularly recently, as more people start comparing notes, I noticed that like the migration over to Red Note, right? There is this sort of like, I don't want to say clash of cultures, because it's not really a clash, but it's just more of both sides kind of seeing a different perspective than they saw before. And that's a big thing. And I think it's healthy. I think it's actually really, really healthy that happened, because in my view, of course, I mean, if you followed any of my material in the past or any of my content, if you followed me for many years, governments eventually run out of everybody else's money. They eventually run out of everybody else's patience as well. They eventually run out. People start comparing notes with each other. They start saying, hold on. I mean, it's sort of like, I mentioned this a while ago, but that World War I soccer game that took place, and where I think it was the Germans and the British and the French, they all stopped fighting each other, and on Christmas Day, and they started playing soccer, right? They just started, because they're like, none of them really wanted to fight on Christmas, because they were their cultures weren't dissimilar. They both celebrated Christmas. So there was this sort of like a Christmas Day armistice, of sorts, if you want to call it that. I think that's what they actually call that. But what happens is that was really terrifying to the ruling class, because the last thing that they wanted was those people, those soldiers comparing notes, because I think there was this infamous story of this lieutenant who was talking with what would be his opposite number on the other side. They were in a conversation with each other. And they said, well, what exactly are you fighting about? What exactly are you here fighting us for? Because we're in this big war, and it's cost a lot of lives, and there's millions dead. And what is this all about on your end? And they all say, oh, well, we're fighting for freedom, right? And of course, the other side is like, well, that's impossible, because we're fighting for freedom. Like, this is exactly what I mean. So you've got all these people kind of, all over the world, starting to compare notes with one another. And I think that that's interesting, that everybody is doing this. So, that's the first bit of this. And the next bit is that's something that I've noticed has been the number of people that think that the other side has it better than they do, right? And like, this is a weird thing with people are always this way, right? This is just a people thing. And it doesn't make any difference where you go. People are this way. Someone always has it better than you do, right? There's the grass is always the greener, right? That's where that comes from. And so the idea is, and I've noticed this because there's a bunch of people commenting, they're saying, well, but now we're seeing the people in China, they're paying less money for their groceries than Americans. Like, what's up with that? Keep in mind, we don't know the whole story on this. We don't know how, if any of that is subsidized. We also don't know how much of that is being, and again, this isn't a criticism, this is an observation. We don't know how much of that is being done with labor from dubious sources. We don't know that, right? This is fair to say this. Now, that applies in the US, by the way. Okay, so that's not me picking on any one side. Remember, I don't clan, so I'm not picking on any one side. I'm actually, more, how do I want to say this? I'm more looking at like all sides and saying, well, I don't know that I trust any of you. Because once again, it's like, if we had a hard currency, we'd know that. Now, and once again, as you guys all know, I'm going to steer that way because in this case, it actually really means something. How many of you out there are familiar with Simon Sinek, right? And it's not spelled C-Y-N. It's not spelled like that. It's Sinek. It's S-E-N-E-K, I think. Anyway, but if you look him up, he does this wonderful talk about, the sort of the alpha idea. What is an alpha? An alpha is somebody who is willing to go do all these jobs. They're willing to go slay a dragon. They're willing to go do all this stuff for the benefit of the tribe, whatever tribe it is, okay, whatever clan or tribe, whatever, it doesn't make a difference. So, but there's a deal though. The deal is if he's willing to do that, he has to get paid something, right? Usually he gets the prettiest daughter to marry, like the prettiest girl, so to speak, or woman, he gets the prettiest woman to marry. He gets the first choice cut of meat, sort of, so it's like the first choice of meat, first choice of mate thing, right? And like, okay, but that comes at the cost of like, hey, you've got to go do like this really dirty, horrible job that nobody else really wants to do, right? Okay, so right now we have an entire world, a planet of people that are doing all of the work that nobody really wants to do, but they seem to be getting paid the least amount of money, right? They're not being paid the most. They're being paid the least. And instead we have this inversion that's taken place where the people who do the jobs that sound, the work that sound exotic and fun and interesting, jet setting all over the world and doing a Zoom meeting, right? You did a Zoom meeting, and so therefore, and we're going to pay you $1 million a year or something like this weird nonsense. And so we have this inverse thing that's taken place, and in a hard money economy, that can't happen because you would have to pay somebody to go. And I have gone over this repeatedly. I'm doing this more for new people, who haven't really followed this stuff. For you guys who've been around for a while and have studied my work in the past, you know that like you already know what's coming next. You already know what I'm going to say, but that's what ends up happening because the people who are doing all the actual work should be making the majority of the money as opposed to getting paid the least amount of money. But this is done through marketing and inflation. And of course, all you do is you counterfeit a bunch of money and you keep floating that to people and you keep telling everybody, you market the idea that these are your geniuses, these are your betters, these are people who know how to do things better than you do, etc. You market it that way. It's sold that way. It's just a marketing tactic, right? And of course, they have a bunch of money, right? Again, it's conjured from nothing. It's not like they earned it. It's just they conjured it from nothing. And so therefore, it's like, oh, well, I guess they are smarter because they have more money. This is a tragic thing that happens with people. People associate this. They think that, oh, well, if somebody has a lot of money, therefore they're smarter. Well, then how do you explain all the stupid rich people? You can't do that. Or how do you explain the poor people that are really intelligent? How do you explain that? It doesn't fit the narrative. So that said, that system doesn't really work. And so It's because of counterfeiting. That's the only reason that exists. They're just counterfeiting money, whether it's digital or otherwise. It doesn't make any difference. Digital, pieces of paper, cotton, whatever, it doesn't make any difference. Or diluting the gold content in your gold coins, which is the Roman Empire. It doesn't matter. That kind of stuff happens all the time. So all of that said, this has been interesting watching this sort of transition where people are starting to have this sort of awakening. And then, of course, on top of that, I've seen this on TikTok where there's been several content creators that have been talking about this seems to be this awakening of consciousness, that everybody is sort of awake, and they're having this sort of epiphany, if you will. Well, that epiphany is they're slowly arriving at the conclusions that a few of us have arrived at many years ago, that a lot of this is fake. I saw a content creator, he's like, hey, all those guys that have got these big houses and they got, fancy cars, all that kind of stuff. He's like, dude, that's all fake. They are in debt like up to here. I mean, they're just drowning in debt to pull that off, to give this facade, this look as though they're doing better than they actually are. And so, of course, and it has a psychological effect on everybody else, because they say, well, how is it possible that everybody is doing way better than I am? Yeah, and they're not really doing better than you are, right? They're just in deeper amounts of debt, and eventually they will be corrected, right? Again, I wouldn't be telling you this if I hadn't done this myself. I mean, dude, I've been there. Not to quote Billy Joel, but it's the truth, right? Like, that's just reality. You think I haven't done this stuff in the past? Dude, I was 30, once upon a time. I was in my 20s. I did all this crazy nonsense. It's why I don't do that now. I have no idea what that is. That's the first time I've seen that, so I have no idea what that was. So anyway, there's sort of my monologue on this, because I've just been watching this, and it's really a shame to lose TikTok, apparently. Now, again, who knows what happens at midnight tonight? I'm